Your child deserves your best version, not the version of you that's still carrying your father's anger, not the version that's repeating your mother's patterns, not the version that's too scared, too broken, or too stuck to do the work. Your best version, and right now you're probably not giving them that. I know that's hard to hear. I know you're doing everything you think you're supposed to do. You're keeping them fed, clothed, safe, you're reading the parenting books, buying the right toys, signing them up for activities. But none of that matters if you're showing up as a damaged version of yourself every single day. Here's what I realized that changed everything about how I parent. Your child doesn't need you to be perfect, but they absolutely deserve you to be working on yourself. They deserve you to be healing from your own childhood instead of unconsciously passing it down to them. They deserve the version of you that has done the work, not the version that's still running from it. 3 years ago, I looked at my child and had a terrifying realization. I was becoming my mother in ways I swore I never would. The same impatience, the same reactions, the same words coming out of my mouth that I hated hearing as a kid. I was literally watching myself repeat patterns that hurt me, and I was inflicting them on the person I loved most in the world. That day, I made a decision that saved both of our lives. I decided that my child deserved better than the automatic, unconscious version of me. They deserved the intentional, healed, evolved version. And if that version didn't exist yet, then it was my job to create her. Let me tell you something that no one else will say to your face. Your unhealed trauma is not your fault, but it becomes your responsibility the moment you become a parent. Your child didn't ask to be born into your dysfunction. They didn't sign up to be your therapist, your emotional regulator, or the recipient of all the pain you haven't dealt with. You know what your child deserves? They deserve a parent who has learned how to regulate their own emotions instead of expecting a 5-year-old to manage yours. They deserve a parent who has processed their own childhood instead of making them pay for what happened to you. They deserve a parent who shows up consistently, not just when it's convenient or easy. But here's what's really happening in most homes. Parents are operating on autopilot, reacting from their wounds instead of responding from their wisdom. You're tired, you're overwhelmed, and you're defaulting to whatever your parents did to you because it's all you know. You're telling yourself that you turned out fine, so your parenting style must be working. But did you turn out fine? Really? Are you emotionally regulated? Do you have healthy relationships? Can you handle stress without falling apart or lashing out? Do you like who you are when things get difficult? Because if the answer is no, then maybe it's time to stop defending the parenting that created those problems. Your child is watching everything you do. They're not just listening to your words, they're absorbing your energy, your reactions, your way of moving through the world. They're learning how to handle anger by watching how you handle anger. They're learning what love looks like by watching how you love. They're forming their sense of self-worth based on how you treat them when you're stressed, frustrated, or overwhelmed. Right now, in this moment, you're either breaking generational patterns or you're continuing them. There's no middle ground. Every time you react instead of respond, every time you let your triggers control you, every time you make your child responsible for your emotions, you're choosing to pass down the dysfunction instead of healing it. I spent years making excuses for why I couldn't do the work on myself. I was too busy, too tired, too stressed. I didn't have money for therapy. I didn't have time for self-reflection. I convinced myself that as long as I was doing better than my parents did, that was enough. But better than terrible is still not good enough for your child. Your child doesn't deserve the slightly improved version of your parents' dysfunction. They deserve the healed version of you. They deserve the version that has learned how to communicate without yelling, how to set boundaries without guilt, how to love without conditions. They deserve the version of you that has broken the cycle instead of just modified it. Here's what doing the work actually looks like, and I'm going to be specific because vague advice doesn't change anything. First, you have to get honest about what needs to be healed. What patterns from your childhood are you repeating? What triggers send you into automatic reactions? What wounds are you projecting onto your child? Second, you have to take responsibility for your emotional state. Your child is not responsible for managing your mood, walking on eggshells around your triggers, or being perfect so you don't lose control. Your emotions are your job. Your reactions are your responsibility. Your healing is your work. Third, you have to learn new skills. You can't just stop doing the wrong thing. You have to learn how to do the right thing. You have to learn how to regulate your nervous system, how to communicate your needs clearly, how to apologize when you mess up, how to repair the relationship when you damage it. Fourth, you have to do this work consistently, not just when you feel like it or when things are going well. Your child needs you to be emotionally available and regulated, even when you're stressed, even when you're triggered, even when life is falling apart around you. But here's what most parents don't understand. Doing this work isn't just about becoming a better parent. It's about giving your child permission to be their authentic self, instead of making them adapt to your dysfunction. When you heal your own wounds, you stop unconsciously expecting your child to heal them for you. When you learn how to regulate your own emotions, you teach your child that they're not responsible for other people's feelings. When you do your own work, you show them that growth and healing are lifelong processes, not weaknesses to be ashamed of. Your child is not your second chance to have a good childhood. They're not here to give you the love you didn't receive or to make up for what you missed out on. They're not your emotional support system or your reason for living. They're their own person with their own needs, and they deserve a parent who has worked through their own stuff enough to see them clearly. I watch parents every day who are so focused on giving their child what they didn't have that they forget to give them what they actually need. You're buying them every toy you wanted but couldn't afford, but are you giving them your presence? You're signing them up for every activity you wished you could have done, but are you teaching them how to regulate their emotions? You're trying to be the parent you wish you'd had, but you're still operating from the wounds that parent would have healed. You can't give your child something you don't have. You can't teach them emotional regulation if you haven't learned it yourself. You can't model healthy relationships if you don't know what they look like. Here's the truth that will change everything if you let it. Your child would rather have one emotionally available, present, regulated parent than all the stuff, activities, and opportunities in the world. They would rather have you show up as your best self consistently than have you give them everything except the version of you they actually need. Your best version isn't perfect. Your best version makes mistakes, has bad days, and doesn't always get it right. But your best version takes responsibility for those mistakes. Your best version apologizes when they mess up. Your best version does the work to understand their triggers so they don't keep inflicting them on their child. Your best version doesn't expect your child to be perfect because they're not trying to be perfect themselves. Your best version models what it looks like to be human while still being responsible for the impact of their humanity on others. The work of becoming your best version isn't selfish, it's the most generous thing you can do for your child. When you heal your own wounds, you prevent them from inheriting those wounds. When you learn better ways to handle stress, conflict, and emotions, you teach them those skills through modeling instead of expecting them to figure it out on their own. When you do your own therapy, your own healing, your own growth work, you're not just improving your own life, you're changing the entire trajectory of your child's life and the lives of their future children. You're breaking patterns that have been passed down for generations. But here's what stops most parents from doing this work. They think it's too late, too hard, or too expensive. They think their child is already too old, too damaged, or too set in their ways. They think if they didn't start this work before having kids, then there's no point in starting now. That's your trauma talking, not your wisdom. It's never too late to become the parent your child deserves. Every moment you choose growth over stagnation, healing over denial, responsibility over blame, you're giving your child a gift that will impact them for the rest of their lives. Your child doesn't need you to have been perfect from the beginning. They need you to be willing to grow, to change, to do better when you know better. They need you to prioritize their emotional well-being enough to work on your own. Start today, not tomorrow, not next week, not when you have more time or money or energy. Today, start by getting honest about what needs to heal. Start by taking responsibility for your reactions. Start by learning one new skill for managing your emotions or communicating more effectively. Your child is counting on you to break the cycle. They're counting on you to be the adult who does the work, so they don't have to spend their adulthood healing from their childhood. They're counting on you to give them the gift of a parent who shows up as their best version, not their wounded version. Don't let them down. Don't let the fear of change, the comfort of familiar dysfunction, or the difficulty of growth rob them of the parent they deserve. You have the power to be that parent. You have the ability to heal, to grow, to become the person you needed when you were their age. Your child deserves your best version, not someday, today. The question isn't whether you can become that person. The question is whether you will. Everything depends on your answer, and your child is waiting to see what you choose.